Hello, you hear me? I'm going to do this in English. I hope everybody's okay with that. It's a pleasure to be here in Porto, and it was just mentioned in this beautiful introduction that I have worked in 67 countries, but today is the day when I work in my 68th country. It's the first time I'm working in Portugal, so thank you for receiving me. All these beautiful titles, I'm very proud of them, but I think I'm most proud to be a mother, and that's one reason why I'm here today. And I'm proud of climbing the Mount Kilimanjaro together with my daughter. Before we start, I would like to tell me who you see in this picture. Einstein. Everybody sees Albert Einstein? Only Einstein? Now I'm going to take a very big risk. I did not test this before, but before we end this session, I am going to let you look at the same picture and see somebody else. It's all about perspectives. So we're speaking about sustainability. And I've been working with sustainability all my life. It's a long life. I'm 61 years old. And maybe some of you remember the Millennium Development Goals. And then when the Sustainable Development Goals arrived, I felt finally we have a framework that everybody, all countries in the world have signed up for. And we're going to get there. We have 17 comprehensive goals. We have 163 targets. We are getting there. And I think today we have been discussing the fact that we are not getting there. In some areas, we're actually going in the wrong direction. So where did we go wrong? What is missing? Well, this was the question that a number of researchers were asking themselves around the world. Because on a global level, we do have the resources. On a global level, we do have the technology. So where is the problem? Who created the problems that we are going to trying to solve? We did, human beings. So it must have something to do with us. A number of researchers from MIT, Otto Scharmer you may know about, Harvard Business School, Stockholm School of Economics, and a number of other universities in the world gathered around this question: what is it we have to do as human beings to create a sustainable future? What are the capacities we need to develop or maybe find again? And the research ended up in a beautiful, actually, in a very boring report to start with. All of you who are researchers, you know that these reports are super long, super boring to read. And same thing was actually the case with the Sustainable Development Goals. It was a super boring report at the UN. But with the help of an organization called the New Division that developed the SDGs, we managed to develop something we call the Inner Development Goals. A beautiful framework, simple, comprehensive, and very easy to communicate. And I think that is the strength of the IDGs. 5 categories: being, thinking, relating, collaborating, and acting. We're going to unpack these dimensions together. And this is our fairly newly launched logo for the Inner Development Goals. As founding partners, we have a number of different organizations around the world, including the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and that is the reason why I'm here. But we also have a number of universities and foundations around the world. How was this possible to fund this research, which was a global research? Well, we were helped by the private sector. The private sector is always the first moving target. And that's why I'm so proud to be here with you today, because you are always moving before the decision makers and the thinkers and the rest. We were primarily financed by 3 companies, IKEA, Ericsson, and Spotify. Why them? Because they have a lot of staff, and they realize that without happy people, linking on to the previous presentation, we cannot flourish as organizations. And now we are working with many, many different companies throughout the world. So let's have a look at this framework, starting with being, how we relate to ourselves. The first capacity we're talking about is our inner compass. We all have values. The values are created early in our life. But do we follow those values, or do we compromise on the values? And how do I link my individual values to the values of the organization I'm working with? And what happens when I can't do that? There is an inner conflict. I think we all have felt that sometime. The lady here in the bottom right is a lady I trained in 1990. She was born in Zimbabwe in Southern Africa. She was an accountant for an insurance company. And she was happily married, but unfortunately her husband fell sick. And he told her, Divine, her name is Divine. Divine, you must promise me one thing before I go. You must follow your dreams. So she promised her husband to follow her dreams. Came back to her kitchen table and thought, so what are my dreams? Well, my dream is actually to start my own business. But what kind of business should I start? Well, in Africa, there is a security issue. So there are a lot of security companies, and she felt there was space in that market. Nobody had ever heard of a woman running a security company. Also, she thought, well, I'm a single mother now, and I think that's the most trustworthy people you can find. So I'm going to employ female guards, single mothers, and of course the market was not ready. They said, no, I need a big, strong man to look after my house at night. Divine stayed with her values. She is a feminist, and she said, you know what? These women, they don't drink, they don't sleep, and they're not corrupt. They will do a better job than the men. I promise you, otherwise you will get your money back. She started with 4 employees, and today she has 5,000 guards. 5,000. And she has received the award of African Entrepreneur of the Year. Not female entrepreneur, not in the security business, but African Entrepreneur of the Year from Richard Branson. She is staying with her values, and she does not compromise on them, no matter what. So that's, for me, a beautiful example of somebody that has an inner compass. Other capacities are, for instance, integrity, a learning mindset, self-awareness, and being here and now, being present. We are spending so much time on our phones, thinking about tomorrow or what happened yesterday. Well, what about here and now? I was sitting outside waiting for this, and I thought, maybe I should just do a little bit of grounding and landing. And guess what? I'm going to invite you to join me on one of those. So I invite you to put away your phones. I invite you to sit comfortably with your feet on the ground and maybe your hands in your lap. I invite you to notice your breathing. Inhale all the way from the bottom, all the way up. And exhale. Let it run down your back. You may want to close your eyes. You may want to just lower your gaze. Nothing to change, just being here and now. And I invite you to think of a person you love, a very young person you love, the youngest person that is important in your life, that you love and care for. You see that person and you feel the love and compassion. And now I invite you to think about an old person that you love, the oldest person in your life that you feel love and compassion and respect for. You see that person in front of you. Now, thinking of this old person when he or she was very, very young, many years ago, what did the world look like? How did people relate to the world? How did people relate to each other, to life, to nature? You see that in front of you. And now, that very young person you were thinking about, when that person will be as old as the old person, what will the world look like? What will life look like? How will people relate to life, to the world? How will people relate to each other? And how will people relate to nature? And how does that make you feel to think about that future? And now I invite you to come back to here and now, 2025. Maybe you want to stretch a little bit. And I invite you to turn to the person next to you and share how you felt when you were envisioning this future. Just share for a short time your feelings. And of course, I would love this conversation to go on forever. Maybe during lunchtime, we can continue sharing. For the sake of time, I'm going to ask you to be back here with me to speak about the second dimension of the inner development goals. The good news is that all these skills can be developed. There are methods to do it. The inner development goals is a framework. It presents different capacities, but there are different methods you can use, And I've had the pleasure of doing it, and I will tell you just now about it. But first of all, the second dimension is our thinking, our cognitive skills. We are spending a lot of time thinking, but are we thinking critically? Are we questioning the information we are getting? Actually, in school, my daughter, who is now 23, but when she was young, she would ask me when I said something, you know, I'm a consultant, so when I say things, I just say, like a consultant, like it's the truth. And she would say, Mom, what is the source of that information? And I said, well, Wikipedia. You know, Mom, anybody can write anything on Wikipedia. I'm not even going to listen to you. This is the thinking we need. There is so much fake news out there, especially today. So having that critical thinking and sharpening it is very important. To have two thoughts in our head at the same time. The world is very complex. It's not black, it's not white. It's actually 50 shades of gray. We wish. And somebody can be very, very bad, and at the same time, very, very good. How do I relate to that? To change perspectives. To actually take the perspective of other people. To make sense of what's happening. A lot of things are happening now. Why did people vote for Trump? Why is he here in the world? How do I make sense of that? Well, maybe it's the end of a pendulum, so that we can react to it. And long-term orientation and visioning in everything we do. What you just did actually in the exercise, you were practicing your visioning skills. Third dimension is called relating. That's how we relate to each other and the world. Here we have skills like appreciation, connectedness, humility, empathy, and compassion. Would you like to play a game? Yeah? Anybody who doesn't want? Okay, good. Now, values are extremely important, and I'm a strong believer that you can run organizations without rules, but actually based on values. That's how I raised my child. No rules, only values. But in games, we need rules. So these are the rules of the game. You find a partner. The goal of the game is to earn as many points as possible. Of course, there should be a prize. And since I'm Swedish, you know what the prize is. No talking, only I can talk. And you start when I tell you, and you stop when I tell you. And you count your own points. Now, how do you gain a point? Can you please come up here? This was not rehearsed. So thumb wrestling, I think some of you have actually tried it. We're going to hold your name again? Maria. Yeah, Maria and I were holding our hands like this. And now I'm getting a point because I take down her thumb. Now she's going to try to get a point. And of course you should not break each other's arms. But that's the name of the game. Are you ready? Find a partner. If you need to stand up, please go ahead. You start on my signal. No talking. Ready. Steady. Go. And stop. Okay. I think there was a bit cheating on the talking, actually. So, let's see the results. Did anybody get 50 points? No? 40 points? Ah. Here we have 40 points, beautiful. And how many points did you guys get? Aha. 2 points. 2 points? Wait a minute. How come 42? Let's look at the rules again. Yeah? First of all, find a partner. A partner, not an opponent. A partner. Now, I think what happened here is that what could have been a beautiful collaboration, you turned into a competition. Thinking, for me to win, the other person has to lose. Whereas you could have collaborated. And I think that's what was happening here. You are not bad people. But it's the way we are wired, thinking, for me to win, the other has to lose. And that leads us to collaboration, our social skills, communication skills. Many people think that communication is talking, whereas listening is much more important. To quote one of my colleagues, Otto Scharmer, listening is probably the most underestimated leadership skill. To co-create, it doesn't have to be my way or no way. If I bring in new ideas, especially in the beginning of the prototyping, the result will always be better. Otherwise, I will throw ideas on people and they will not want to change. Inclusive mindset and intercultural understanding or competence. Extremely important now that the world is all over the place. Trust. Trust, trust, trust. We have a trust crisis in our world. And of course, mobilization skills. When I say that we have a trust crisis, I mean, it's very simple. There's economics to it. When the trust is low, the speed is low, and the cost is high. And when the trust is high, the speed is high, and the cost is low. So let's use one example. I mean, for instance, during COVID, many governments did not trust their people. They gave them rules. You have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do that. Lockdown. What happened to the economics? I happen to come from a country, it's not thanks to me, that the government said, no lockdown, we have recommendations. We recommend you to keep 2 meters of distance. Now, being Swedish, we were like, oh my God, 2 meters. When can we go back to the normal, which is 5 meters? In any case, our economy did not go down as much. We recovered very quickly. And you know, coming here, I had to take 2 airplanes. That's quite painful. And I have to be at the airport 2 hours before boarding. I don't know if anybody remember when you would check in and get on the plane in half an hour, when there was trust. Now, how do we create trust in organizations? How do you, as leaders, create trust in your organizations? One word, $1 million question. Culture, yeah, but how do you install that culture? There are ways to develop trust. Me, myself, I had trust issues when I was younger because of what I had lived in my childhood. I have worked on it very much, so I know that you can actually improve your trust. Maybe that's a discussion for lunchtime. Last dimension is called acting. Because all the other dimensions are great, but if we don't go to action, I think somebody this morning was talking about action also, it's not worth anything. We need courage. We are all here and we're all agreeing, but when we go out back, we need to be courageous, creative, optimistic, and persevere. This lady here called me 15 years ago. I had never heard of her. And she said, "My name is Gopi." I said, "Who are you?" "I want you to be my mentor." "Okay, how did you get my number?" So Gurpreet is Sikh, and she was born in Kenya. She went to Canada for her schooling. She became an engineer, came back to Nairobi. Coming from an entrepreneurial family, she was thinking, so what kind of business can I start now? And she looked around, and there were plastic bottles everywhere. No recycling, plastic bottles. And she felt, I want to solve this problem. So she had this idea of taking the plastic bottles, making fibers out of them, shredding them into fibers, create fabric for the high fashion industry. Beautiful idea. And I said, well, Guppy, I don't know you. I'd like to meet you. I will come to Nairobi. I'm going in anyway to Rwanda, get to know you and your family, create trust, and then we talk. She did her business plan, and all the way from unprivileged women collecting the bottles, getting paid for it, all the way I connected her to Patagonia, to H&M. They said, we will buy your fabric. Now she needed capital to start building her factory. Not easy. She went to a couple of donors and they were all like, no, we have a different project in solar energy and we have this other project for and she was like, this is my idea. This is what I want to do. So finally, through her perseverance, she realized, I have to go to the source of the problem. So she went to Coca-Cola and told them, you created this problem, I can help you solve it. And they invested with her, and she built her factory. And here she is on television with her amazing, innovative solution to the problem. Now, this is all nice. People feel good. Individuals are more trusting. They are more better communication. They know their values. But that is not enough. If in the development happens on individual level, we will have a lot of happy people, but it does not change the world. So that's why we started a program, a capacity development program called Global Leadership for Sustainable Development, and we did a pilot in 12 countries. Developing these skills on individual level is beautiful. But when you can integrate in the development into organizations, into structures, into policies, into activities and operations, something else happens. Into the services of the organizations. And finally, into the systems, working with the governments, so that we have policies promoting inner development. That's where the magic happens. So we launched this program, and we worked with a multi-stakeholder approach. We trained people in government, in civil society, in academia, and in private sector. All of them were trained as leaders, but also were trained to drive that change in their different organizations and to collaborate on a national basis. And the objective was to create a critical mass. We call them minimum viable ecosystems for inner development. And in some of the countries, amazing things are happening. Companies are flourishing, sustainably integrating this into their business ideas, into their strategies. Governments are integrating in the development in policy development. In Costa Rica, it's in the guidelines of how to develop different policies. How can you develop a policy if you don't even have trust from the people you're going to develop it for? If you don't feel empathy with them, how can you even define which problem you're trying to solve? Education policies. In Colombia, they are integrating it into the education system so that actually our children can learn to develop these skills from the beginning. To quote a colleague of mine from the Stockholm School of Economics, where our friend works, his clients are the organizations who need the best leaders in the country. They need leaders, whether they're going to work in public sector or in private sector. They need leaders who can create trust in organizations. They don't need leaders who can do Excel sheets or quote the 7 S's or do what AI can do. Now that we have AI, we have to focus at what we as human beings have to be human. So they need leaders with empathy and compassion. So of course, he has to teach the students that as well. So inner development is being taught at the Stockholm School of Economics, is being taught at the HEC Paris, and many other universities in the world. And in order to integrate inner development into an organization is not a quick fix. You need a roadmap, and you need to speak the language of the organizations. The same language as any strategy will speak. Looking at the current situation, where are we today? Going via the analysis, the objectives, the integration and impact. It's only that way we can actually get more traditional organizations to integrate this new way of thinking. We're back to where we started. You still seeing the same person? Yeah? I don't know if we have time, but if you would go all the way back, or maybe do like this, or can we make the picture smaller? The same picture smaller? Is that possible? Yeah? Yes. Take the next one. Does anybody see somebody else? I can't hear you. Marilyn Monroe. No? Does anybody see Marilyn Monroe? Ah. If you don't see it, maybe you need to go to the back of the room. Or maybe you need to go like this with your eyes. You are too close. Because very often when we look at things, we tend to get very close to them. And sometimes we need that helicopter perspective to get further away from the situation we're trying to solve. Maybe sleep on it. Maybe go for a walk in the nature. And when we're back, we will see it from a completely different perspective. Thank you very much.